Sergei Lavrov just put the icing on top of this cake. Sergei Lavrov is talking about the new BRICS meeting that is coming into focus here on July 7th and 8th in Rio de Janeiro. To you, Brazil, as the 2025 summit chair, has proposed a new BRICS payment platform. That is this bridge technology. When we started talking about the BRICS, it was before that we talked about the Belt Road Initiative. And the Belt Road Initiative is 75% of human population, 50% of global GDP, but most of the countries are not in the BRICS. They're aligned with the BRICS. Think of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union. Massive amount of human population, most countries not in the BRICS, but associated with the BRICS. The president of Belarus for a year has been calling for a summit to bring those two entities, the Eurasian Economic Union, those are the countries that end in Stan, like Kazakhstan, and the SCO, which is the largest regional military and financial group in the world, into the BRICS. Never happened. So you have this huge swath of human population that's all tied in with China, and in many ways tied in with the BRICS. So think about that as we talk about this. We talked about on your show many times how the BIS at the 12th hour, Augustus Carstens, when he came to the United States for the IMF meeting, said, he got his arm twisted, saying after 4 years of the BIS Innovation Hub developing the Mbridge with China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and UAE, it was operational. They said, look, we can't be involved in a platform that allows countries to evade Western sanctions. And I always joke, after 4 years, he realized that Russia was the R in BRICS. All of that stuff. Keep all of this in mind as we move forward with this here. So a few days ago, the People's Bank of China, I'm just going to read this part verbatim. What I'm going to read you is the Mbridge. They've changed the name to the bridge or to something else, but this is Mbridge technology, which allows countries to trade their own central bank currencies cross-border. They're all ISO 2022 compliant. So each one of these countries has their own unique CBDC, but they all communicate with one another in the bridge, and then they would settle in gold. Forget about the fact that the unit settlement token has kind of been pushed to the sidelines. From when I had an interview with Matt Riley the other day, and he said, no, it's there, it's coming back. They're just being very quiet after what the BIS did. But in the meantime, they've been trading local currencies and settling in gold, any imbalances. And remember, it was the head of the New Development Bank and the former president of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff, who said, we've agreed in principle to this new settlement token traded over Mbridge. And then the BIS, what amounts to espionage, pulls the plug. Keep all of this in mind, and the Belt Road, and the Eurasian Economic Union, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as I read this. And it goes as follows. The People's Bank of China, and this is just last week, has announced that the digital RMB cross-border settlement system, that's the Mbridge, is now fully connected to 10 ASEAN countries. Those are the countries in Southeast Asia, and 6 Middle Eastern nations. This development enables approximately 38% of global trade to bypass the SWIFT system, which is predominantly used for transactions in US dollars, allowing these trades to be settled directly in digital RMB. In practical terms, China's digital currency bridge has significantly reduced cross-border payment processing times from the typical 3 to 5 days associated with SWIFT to approximately 7 seconds. For instance, a pilot transaction between Hong Kong and Abu Dhabi demonstrated that a company could pay a Middle Eastern supplier using digital RMB, eliminating the need for multiple intermediary banks and achieving a real-time settlement with a 98% reduction in handling fees. Okay, great. So they've rolled that out to 40% of global GDP. But Sergei Lavrov just put the icing on top of this cake. Sergei Lavrov is talking about the new BRICS meeting that is coming into focus here on July 7th and 8th in Rio de Janeiro, with 44 countries expressing interest and 23 formally applying. Vietnam is the 44th country to express interest in joining, okay? 23 have formally applied, 44 have expressed interest. The meeting's July 7th. We haven't heard a lot because what the BIS did, I think, made them all rein, and the amount of information that they want to pass around, because they realize that the West is maybe not as keen on this idea as they all are. So let me read this to you. Brazil, as the 2025 summit chair, has proposed a new BRICS payment platform. That is this bridge technology. And here's where it gets interesting. For both member and non-member countries, think the Belt Road, think the Eurasian Economic Union, think the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which amounts to north of 85% of human population, the majority of global GDP, all of the resources, majority are produced in these countries, the rare earths, the precious metals, the majority of the soft commodities like wheat, all of it, the majority are produced in these countries. The system would be independent of SWIFT, the US dollar, the euro, and the British pound. So the US, the euro, and the pound, they're on the outs. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov emphasized it will be open to non-member nations, accelerating de-dollarization on a global scale. So to me, when you realize that they are now opening it up to countries that are not just BRICS members, this changes everything. It changes the complete and total narrative. Now, all of these countries will be able to trade outside of SWIFT. So any information we are getting regarding how the dollar's dominance on the SWIFT system is so strong ignores the ability or the reality. This stuff won't be counted in SWIFT. These countries will be able to trade with one another using their own ISO 2022 compliant cross-border payment currencies to trade and then settle any discrepancies in gold before the unit settlement token takes place. This is a massive, massive deal. And when you see the commercial or the central banks continue to buy gold at a level the world has never seen, and reshore it, onshore it, it should be a wake-up call to the West. When you see Trump say we're gonna throw these tariffs on you, which aren't tariffs, they're sanctions, it's only reinforcing why these countries are joining, including Vietnam, who's been friendly with the United States, but now is the 44th country to apply and express interest. So this is not something that has gone away, regardless of the fact that I haven't talked about it on your show for a while. I've been very quiet about it. There hasn't been a lot of information, and that, I believe, is done purposefully. But you can see that they are continuing to build this infrastructure, and now opening it up to non-BRICS members is insanely significant. And if you were to say, if China said all transactions on the Belt Road will settle through this new system, not going through the SWIFT, think of what that does to the dollar demand, to the settlement status of the dollar, and ultimately to the reserve status. Think of what it does. The Eurasian or the Shanghai Cooperation in and of itself is a huge swath of human population. You put all of these countries together, along with all of their resources, this is something that should certainly not be underestimated. And I think it's easier for a lot of the pundits out there to blow off what the BRICS are trying to do when it's just the 9 countries. You talk about adding potentially hundreds of countries. There's over 150 countries on the Belt Road. You're talking a whole different ball of wax. I don't care how small they are. The common denominator in all of these other countries, whether it be in the Eurasian Economic Union, whether it be in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or in the Belt Road, they are all significantly located in strategic areas, both either on land or bordering water, or more relevant, strategic to all of the natural resources they have. So this is a trend that is accelerating, and they don't need the BIS to do it anymore. They're doing it themselves. So stay tuned. I think you will see more and more and more information rear its head on the significance of the BRICS expansion. You can't take these countries lightly. These countries are not pushovers. They're not Libya. They're not Iraq. These are some of the biggest, most industrialized and strongest military countries in the world. Well, I was surprised to hear this because it was my understanding that gold would not be tariffed. And I asked my operations, why do we have no gold bars? Virtually none. I mean, we had some, but not a lot. And he was saying that the tariffs for the Swiss bars are too high. Now, I don't know if he's mistaken or not, but that's what he told me, that the bars are being tariffed. Maybe it's because they're not sovereign coins. I don't know. And maybe he's wrong, but as far as I was led to believe, that gold was not going to be tariffed, but maybe it's investable gold or 1 ounce gold bars or whatever it is. I will just simply tell you that maybe it's a result of the tariffs. They're becoming very, very hard to get. It's much easier for me to get sovereign minted coins right now than it is 1 ounce gold bars, which were always the easiest thing in the world to get. But no, other than that, there hasn't been a lot of talk on it. But look, there's something called a Triffins Dilemma, which is something that the White House has written about. There was a great piece done by Mike Maloney, and he talks about this. He says the White House acknowledged the fact that Triffin's Dilemma basically says if you're the world reserve currency, there is no choice but to run trade deficits. You cannot do enough commerce to make up for the fact that the world needs dollars and more and more and more dollars. And you can't buy enough from these countries to give them enough dollars. And so we have to export dollars. We will always have a trade imbalance. And you have to wonder, does Trump understand this? Does he not understand this? Or does he understand it and he's trying to incentivize this? Could it be a continuation of the too stupid to be stupid that we saw in the previous administration, just on a different hat? In other words, why not extend an olive branch to these countries instead of going more with the stick and threatening with tariffs that are actually sanctions and huge tariffs? These countries, I think, these are the countries, as I've said on your show before, that take our currency for our paper. They take our paper for their goods, rather. And they're the ones who then recycle back into treasuries, which keep interest rates low, which keep the goods that we buy cheap, which keeps our asset prices high, and has enabled us to live like kings. Do we really want to go down that road where no longer are they buying our treasuries or wanting to hold our dollars and moving away from it, which would make asset prices fall, which would make goods much more expensive, and would make our standard of living much lower? Ultimately, would that be the onset of a reset? Maybe, I don't know, but someone should explain to him Triffin's Dilemma. If not, and look, I voted for Trump and I'd vote for him again, and I'm glad he's here, and I'm not rallying against him, but what I am saying is that you have to wonder what his motivation is, and you would think he would understand something as basic as that.